Hey, what's up, guys? We have Melissa Fortner here. She was a witch and also was in a cult. So how's it going, Melissa? How you doing today?
Good. I am just chilling here in Connecticut.
Cool. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll go from there?
So I am a hardcore millennial who's been weird her whole life and into witchy stuff. And then I got involved in a cult during the pandemic. It had me quitting my job, starting a company, and then I left the cult but still have the company. And now the company is doing relatively well. I'm in an MBA program working on expanding the company. So I went from cult member to entrepreneur.
Cool. And so the cult was a witchcraft cult, right?
Yep, it was a coven that went crazy. That's kind of what I tell people when they're like, "Hey, you were in a witch cult." I'm like, "Yeah, just think coven that went nuts."
Yeah, I would imagine that most covens probably go nuts, right? Or maybe not, but
I One of the things as I started kind of doing media and talking about my story is there are a lot of pagans who've been part of covens that have gotten culty. Uh, but not every coven is culty. Some are pretty chill. I mean, I was in one in high school that I led that wasn't culty whatsoever. So I think at least in my experience, where things got really askew is when the coven had to become my life. And when it could only be it was the only thing I was allowed to do or be part of. And I think if you can have that balance of your real life and your spiritual life, then you're not culty.
yeah. So what were you doing before? It sounds like you were into it, but not fully into it. You had like a regular job. Yeah, what were you doing before you joined the cult? What was your job and everything?
So I was trained as a therapist, and I'm still a licensed therapist in the state of Connecticut. What up? Um, so yeah, I'm a licensed therapist. I focus on adolescents. I worked on a PhD in movement psychology, and like movement therapy. But what ended up happening is that I was going work on the PhD and I came to the IRB, which is the the institutional review board. And the IRB kind of knocked down 2 years of research and said that I couldn't actually do the study that I had been preparing for 2 years. So I had to pivot as life teaches you to pivot. And I decided instead of going kind of the academic route to just start working in the field. And that's when I started working with teenagers.
Okay, so full-time teenage therapist. Okay. I majored in psychology and wanted to do I would want to be a therapist, but at the time I had like really high anxiety, still kind of do. And I was like, I don't know. I just didn't have the balls, I guess, to like get a master's or a doctor in it. I still don't know how great I'd be, but I'm definitely interested in that also. I'm interested in both. But the main thing that I'm interested in with, and then why did they reject the 2 years of what you were researching?
Because I focused on adolescents with ASD, so autism spectrum disorder. I was really interested in studying movement therapy for populations that have difficulty verbalizing their emotions. So when I was working on that, even though I asked before I applied to my PhD program, which still gives me ire to this day, they knocked me down for wanting to work with people who are under the age of 18. Even if I was doing all of my research with kids who were consenting or had like parental permission, even if I was working on all of that, they didn't want any studies on kids.
Okay, that's kind of, or you just pretty much can't do any research on kids. It's like for to protect the kids or something, or why was
That's
that?
yeah, that's what the IRB told me. But I was like, hey, I've spent 2 years and it was gonna be teens the whole time, guys. Like that never changed. That didn't change from when I applied for this PhD program to now. You just kind of wasted 2 years of my life. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and like you told them straight up in the beginning, it's like why didn't you just tell me then?
Yeah, basically, I applied to PhD programs saying, hey, I want to do this study and I would like to get a doctorate while I do it, because then it makes it mildly worth doing the study instead of just like doing it on my own because I'm a research nutball. Uh, so yeah, I finally got to the IRB and they were like, nope, no, we can't do kids. I was guys, we've known this the whole time. I've written papers about what my dissertation was going to be. I've done literature reviews. You've known at every point in this 2 year process that I was doing adolescence. What the fuck?
Yeah, and what college was that, or I guess university? What that was that with? Did you go to?
I probably shouldn't shit on them, but it was Grand Canyon University.
Oh,
And I
Grand
applied to
Canyon
two
University.
other doctoral programs, and I got into the other two, and I picked Grand Canyon because it was the cheapest.
Were you going? Is the school at like near the Grand Canyon, or is there like different kind of like offshoots that
Oh
you can
yeah,
go
it's
to?
in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. All right, cool. So, anyways, getting to the yeah, I actually worked right out of college. My first job, I guess you could say, doing the only thing I did that was like psychology related at all was working with autistic kids. And I'm definitely not good with kids. Like I definitely like I just too nervous around kids, and so that didn't last too long. And then also where I found you, I don't know if you looked at the other posts, but there was one post of a 15-year-old who went through Munchausen by proxy or whatever that is, and wants to come on the podcast. But I'm like, that's probably too young. Yeah, working with kids especially makes me kind of like nervous. You know what I mean? But it's definitely a good route to go for you or anybody else. So, anyways, getting into the witchcraft stuff. Yeah, so I'm definitely very interested in witchcraft, all that kind of stuff. I don't. My main question is just how realistic is most of it, and like obviously you could answer that question for me, but I kind of have my doubts when it comes to anything spiritual, magic related. But so how far, you know, how realistic is most of all of it? Like, what were you guys doing? Well, I guess let's just start from the beginning. How did you even get involved with the cult and all that? And
So right before the pandemic, March 7th of 2020, I will never forget this day until I die. I moved from Brooklyn to where I live now, which is Stamford, Connecticut. And then the world fucking shut down. My husband did his commute 3 times to New York because he still works in the city. And then, yeah, someone on his floor in the building he works in got COVID. So they were like, okay, we're going to just temporarily work at home for like 2 weeks. And we know that that didn't happen. Uh, so during the pandemic, I'm working on the PhD. I'm bored out of my mind, especially once I like unpacked everything from my house. I'm playing a lot of Animal Crossing, as one does and did during the pandemic. So I was just taking kind of all of these classes on Zoom, online, wherever I could find them. And I did every fucking class you could possibly think of that was spiritual because A, I suck at meditation, and I know that that is a good self-care tool for a lot of people. So I was like, hey, I kind of want to get better at this, if not just for myself, then to help my clients. Um, I was doing I remember one was like an awareness exercise every morning at like 8:30 in the morning. I took one that was talking about like the Akashic records. But my Saturday nights were with Witch School, which was through Catland, which was a witch store in Brooklyn. It was led by Dakota, who I love to death, and I still love to death. And Catland not just had witch school, it had a bunch of other classes. They had stuff on like green witchcraft, astrology, numerology, crystals, all of that sort of thing. And starting around November, they brought in a teacher named Lux who taught classes based off of Norse stuff. So things like the runes, the gods, the magic system, things like that. In like the larger witchcraft community, a lot of times people just kind of like put the Norse shit on the side because it can be very different than kind of the typical Celtic or Hellenic paganism. It's very different than Wicca. And there's also a lot of white supremacists or a lot of stuff that has been appropriated by white supremacists in Norse spirituality. So it was always kind of like this like weird bastard stepchild on the corner. And I know the first class or like one of the first classes I took with Lux, she talked about a certain kind of magic system called spa. Um, and when she described it, I was like, oh, I do that all the time. To explain spa for like a non-witchy person, you drive, right? You're on the West Coast, so I'm guessing you drive.
Yeah.
You ever look in your rearview mirror and you see a car like bobbing and weaving through a lot of traffic, and then they come next to you and you see that the car in the lane next to you, but in front of you is going a little slow, and you know that they're going to cross in front of you, and then they fucking cross in front of you?
Yeah.
That's spa. It's observing behavior and observing patterns in order to better predict the future. Because you have to remember, a lot of these things originated at times that we didn't have computers, right? Like this shit would boggle the mind of a Viking, right?
Yeah.
So spa is all about observing patterns of behavior and observing things to predict the future. I can tell you that it's going to be warm where I live in April. It's cold as shit today, but it's going to be warmer in April, right? I've lived this life 38 years at this point. I know spring's going to happen in April because I've observed patterns. And that was kind of what I wanted to cultivate more, especially when you factor in I'm a therapist. So I study behavior in people all the time. So I could kind of predict what they're going to do or how they're going to react in certain situations. So it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do this already. I need to learn it better. And then Lux started taking me on as a student.
Yeah. So it's not really so much predicting the future as it is kind of like just knowing what's going to happen based on things that have happened previously, correct?
Yeah,
Like tomorrow the sun's going to come up, and then it's not really like
100%.
necessarily magic or predicting anything, right? Or would some of it be considered
Yeah, it's
predicting?
not 100% reliable, and it's definitely not magic in like a typical sense, right? Like I think people think of magic in like this movie kind of thing of how kind of magic exists. But if you're a real person dealing with real shit, trying to get like your crops to grow or to get rain or anything like that, and there's a lot of unpredictability in the world, having a person like a Spakona is a person who practices the art of spa, who can tell you that from their observation is really fucking important and can really help. Like if I know to slow down because the guy's going to cut in front of me, I can prevent having a car accident.
Yeah. And that's just from basically from drivers doing that same thing before, right? It's not necessarily, yeah. Like you're
Yeah.
just used to what this driver's, you know what the driver's going to do because you've seen it before. Yeah. So
Yep.
what does the word spa stand for? Is that like a,
It's just what it was called in Old
okay.
Norse was just spa. Yeah.
Okay. So this person came in and they were like in Norse magic, or they were a spakona. And then did you decide to like follow this person, or how did, what happened next for you getting involved with the cult?
Well, Lux kind of just talked. She didn't originally identify as a Spakona, but she wasn't taking individual students for spa. So I kind of had to tell her, like, hey, I'm doing this already. So either you could teach me and I'll pay you your regular student rate, or I can learn this on my own. But like, you already kind of did some of that. Please take me on as a student. So she took me on. I was the first person that she took on to teach spa. And we met once a week and we went through like, she had this whole like curriculum system. And I met with her every week for 2 years. And after those 2 years, she said, hey, I want to do this retreat with two other students who are also studying spa. Because when she felt comfortable teaching me, she took on other students. So I'm gonna get an Airbnb in bumfuck New York, like upstate Catskills, New York. And we're gonna do another form of Norse magic called Save, which is also known as trance magic. So that's like the channeling gods part. Um, but at this point in time, I was already kind of invested. It had been 2 years of meeting with her every week. I like had this crazy experience where I almost died, and then Lux read the runes and told me I needed help. So I went to the ER and I found out I had a pulmonary embolism, and I totally would have died if I didn't have that rune reading. There was all of this kind of stuff that had happened in those 2 years of working with Lux individually. Um, after I got denied from the IRB for my PhD, I went back to school to focus on cults deprogramming because I was like into cults, and like that was like the thing that I got into during the pandemic too, was watching all the cult documentaries and listening to all the cult podcasts, which I feel like a lot of people did. Um, so I was working on that master's, and that's when Lux told me that I was burnt out because I was working all the time. And couldn't I see that? Um, and then I stopped working on that second master's. It was right before we met up and did Save. And then, like, literally the week we were going into this Airbnb. And then we did Save, and that was fucking crazy. And then it just validated me dropping out of that master's. And now I'm in another master's because I fucking love education.
What is save?
Save is trance magic. So that is when you channel something, be it a deity, be it some other knowing entity, in order to kind of like have an interaction with them. You can either talk to them or you can um, ask them questions, that sort of thing. But either way, a deity or essence or thing is being channeled and you can talk to them.
Okay, and is this Norse witchcraft? Is it like kind of like, is this like kind of like more serious than the other types? And then also, you mentioned paganism. So is paganism pretty much the same thing as witchcraft, or is there kind of like a separation there?
So every time I explain this, sometimes people get confused. My undergrad degree is in religious studies. So we're going to do like the basic religion 101. Pagan just means it's a big umbrella term. It just means you believe in more than one god, right? So there we go. A lot of people are pagan. Technically speaking, Hindus, Buddhists are also pagan, but now we don't really use that term as much in like the academic sense of people who study religions. Pagans in more modern translations are people who believe in like any of your classic mythologies that you like learned in high school, right? So be it Norse, Celtic, there's Hellenic ones who do like the Greeks and the Romans. Um, there's people who are Mesopotamian and like do that sort of thing. There's Slavic. There's like a bunch of different types of pagans. Some are witchy. Because witchcraft is just practicing magic. Some are not. And then there's Wicca, which is like a whole religion under the umbrella of paganism. And they inherently do magic, but not every witch is Wiccan. And not every pagan. It's a clusterfuck. But basically, it's pagan is a nice umbrella term.
Okay, but it's like mostly kind of like paganism would mostly kind of be like the Greek gods or the Roman gods. It's kind of like a more of an old school traditional way of religion of multiple gods, whereas now most people will Christians, Jewish people, Muslims, most religions really are just kind of like one God, right? So it's more of kind of like a throwback to when there was multiple gods. Although I don't really know if there's many religions today where there are multiple gods that isn't paganism, right? So it's more of like an old school way of thinking about gods, right?
Especially in the West. I think like
Yeah,
uh,
like you said,
in
Buddhism,
the West,
Hinduism.
yeah, there's so many modern pagans that are just like, hey, my ancestors came from Italy. I'm gonna, worship Mars because he's been my guy forever. That sort of thing, I think
Yeah,
is very, not every time, but a lot of pagans tend to follow like ancestral um like pantheons. A pantheon is like the group. So like the Celtics are a pantheon, the Norse are a pantheon, the Greeks or the Romans are a pantheon. So people tend to follow the pantheon of like their ancestors, but that's not 100% tried and true.
yeah. I do like YouTube videos, and I tried to cover like all the religions, and I tried to get as old as possible, and I kind of hit a wall with the religious stuff. It didn't seem to be doing as good as the other stuff. But so I learned a little bit about that. Do you have specific gods that you believe in and then don't, or like Greek gods or Roman gods, or do you kind of just tend to believe in like all of them, or like how you know what I mean? Like how many are there, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm Norse. So like Odin, big dude for me. Loki, big dude for me. I usually go by Sif your daughter as my last name, which means daughter of Sif. Sif is Thor's wife. Um, I have statues and altars to fucking everybody. I've got Freya, I've got Tyr, I've got an altar to Hel, I've got stuff all over my house. To kind of like worship those deities. But to me, it's not that I don't believe in, say, like Aphrodite or any of like the Greeks or the Romans. It's just like this is the flavor that resonates to me. And if like you're Hellenic, like I have my podcast called Sillage and Sorcery. My podcast co-host is Hellenic, and I'm just like, yep, totally. If that's who's talking to you, go for it. And if like that's working for you, fantastic. For me, I just resonate with the Norse deities.
Okay, and in general, is it kind of like that where it's like a one size fits all? I don't know if that's the right saying for it, but where like you can kind of believe in whatever you want to believe in, and then someone else can also, and neither person is necessarily correct. It's just whatever kind of works for you type thing.
I will say, if like other pagans I've met, almost all of them are just like, oh, hey, I'm Celtic. Oh, hey, I'm Norse. Oh, I'm Hellenic. Sweet. Like, and we're all just chill with each other's pantheons. I have one friend who's Celtic, and she's just like, oh, I love working with Morgan. And I'm like, I know a little bit about her, and that's about it. And like she's never really come to me or said anything, but like I'm so stoked that that's who's calling to you.
Yeah, and then when you mentioned hell, like does Satan and the devil and hell? That's kind of like more of a Christian thing. So is that
Oh,
also
Hel's a
kind of
goddess in
okay?
the Norse belief system.
So this is all from Norse. It doesn't cross over. And like, do you believe in Satan or the devil or anything like that? No.
No.
So it's all just old school gods and goddesses. Okay. And then
Yep.
so anyway, so back to the cult. So she had you basically leave the program you were in, and then were you doing the cult full time? at that point, or
So we did save at the first time in which I was also doing drugs in the woods because I didn't know it was drugs, but we could get to that later if you want. But um it wasn't until we had been doing Faith fairly regularly, always in like random Airbnbs. We did one at her apartment. And then we were doing an event in North Carolina in the Outer Banks. And the Outer Banks got hit with a tropical storm when we were there. So we couldn't go on the beach, even though like the house was on the beach and it was like supposed to be this whole like fun vacation slash like work thing because we were doing Save for the people who were hosting us. Um, and we couldn't go in the water because of the tropical storm. So what do witches do when they're like bored in a house by themselves? We play with tarot cards and oracle cards and we do divination and that sort of thing. And what ended up happening at that point, now this is, I want to say 6-ish months of us doing Faith fairly regularly. Every card that we were pulling, everything that we were doing, Lux kept saying, oh, can't you see that like the this is the card saying that you need to quit your job. Oh, this is Freya saying that you need to quit your job. This is, you know, the deities are all kind of coming together to tell you to quit your job. And then, like, where things got culty is that the other two girls in the group were also like, well, Lux is saying it, and I'm seeing it from the cards, so I'm gonna tell you to do it too. And when you get that for 4 days, or however long, I don't remember exactly how long we were in North Carolina, um, when you get that kind of consistently for multiple days, I came back and then my first meeting with my boss, I told her I was quitting in 3 months. And then that's when I quit my job.
okay. So I guess so they just had a kind of control over you, or to where you just did. Would you say that you wanted to do what they told you to do, or
I described it in therapy once as bukkake. So I'm sorry if that gets you like demonetized or something. But I called it bukkake. And the reason I called it bukkake is it's like, okay, the oracle cards are saying it. The runes are saying it. The tarot cards are saying it. I'm saying it. th- Another girl is saying it. Another girl is saying this. And now, any intuition that I may have had with Freya is also pointing to it. So it's just kind of coming at you from all angles constantly. And at some point, you're going to give in. Like,
yeah,
that's just kind of the nature of how people are. Even if we take the woo out of it and take the tarot cards and stuff out of it, if you're getting from everyone around you that your partner is an asshole, you're gonna break up with your partner eventually. Maybe not now, maybe not 3 months from now, but eventually that is going to wear down your relationship. And that's kind of what happened. It wasn't that I was like particularly susceptible or that I was particularly like brainwashed in the group or anything like that. It was just that I was getting it constantly from everywhere and everything all the time. The only place that really wanted me to stay was my actual job.
yeah. So what was the plan when you quit? Just kind of like do the cult full time, but then you guys also had the fragrance business, right, at the time. So was it?
No, so I didn't have the fragrance business when I quit. So basically, what happened is when I quit, it was okay, I'm gonna I have projects. First, I needed to get a dog. So I got a dog. His name is Ben. I still have him. He's a Havanese. He's cute as shit. Um, and then I got the dog, and Lux told me to get rid of the dog because once again, burning me out because that was all she told me constantly. Then I was decluttering my house. And Lux had told me for a while to start a fragrance company. And I said no because my podcast co-host B um, had their own fragrance company. So I was like, I'm not doing something that's gonna compete with B. Like B is the witchy perfumer in our extended friend group, right? Like I'm not doing that. Um and I should also say that the other two girls had their own companies. So one made candles, one had a bakery. Lux herself had like her own like side hustle making jewelry. So everybody had their own company except me. So, and then the other part with the companies is that everybody was kind of working together. So we did an event in Vermont and everybody gave, like, one person gave a candle, one person gave cookies, Lux gave her own thing, and I don't make things. So I didn't have anything to contribute to the selling of the stuff at the event that we were also making money for. Um, so I think, like, because I was the one holdout, Lux really wanted me to have a company because then we would all have our own side hustle company, however you want to phrase it, that all kind of went involved into, like, were involved in the cult. If you want to get real deep into cult lore and cult tactics, if I have my own company and I'm financially dependent on being in the cult, I'm more likely to stay in a cult. And it's harder for me to leave. So I don't know if it was conscious, but I will say that having a company that is directly related to the cult is definitely something that would keep you in a cult if you need that to pay your bills.
Okay. And then why would you call it a cult as opposed to like a coven? Is a cult kind of like a worse term than coven, or like why was it a cult?
Well, from an academic perspective, like, there's a bunch of conflicting reports of like what is and is not a cult. Most tend to use the bite model, or Johnny Lalich has like an outline of what's a cult. And everything Lux was doing, right? Like, she was controlling our information, she was controlling our behavior, she was controlling, like, she kept telling me that I felt burnt out, right? I had to stop my second master's because I was being burnt out. I had to give up Bennett because I was burnt out, even though I personally did not feel burnt out. Like, I realized, like, I got a fucking puppy, and having a puppy is like having a fucking demon that shits around your house all the time. But eventually, he's gonna stop shitting around your house, right? Um, and I think, like, I kind of had that perspective, like, okay, yes, I am very tired right now because he is not crate trained. But once he is crate trained and we're working on it, it will be a lot better. Um, so that's all kind of part of that's the bite model. But there's a lot of things that Lux would do kind of repeatedly. Isolation, she told me to stop talking to my parents. Um, she like it was constant. We were all talking to each other in this like Instagram chat every second of every day. And it got to the point that I would have to put my phone on like do not disturb if I was working with my clients because I was a therapist at this time, right? So if I was like working with my clients, I just had to kind of do not disturb and leave my phone in my office if I was in the group with the kids or doing some kind of activity with the kids because the group chat would like constantly just ping at you all the time. And those are all cult tactics.
Okay. And were you married at this time too, or no?
Yep. I was married the whole time.
And then what does your husband think? What did your husband think about it? Was he
So
just like at home alone while you were there, or
yes. So for the retreats, I was just in an Airbnb and he was at home taking care of the dog and the cat. Um, what I will say is that I did a cult support group through a lovely nonprofit organization called Antidote, and I totally recommend them for a lot of people who might be listening to this and wondering if they're undergoing psychological manipulation themselves. But one of the things that cults do is they're big on secrecy. Like, I read a whole ass fucking book about how a witch's power is in her ability to keep secrets. And that, I think, perpetuated a lot of this. We weren't allowed to, like, I wasn't allowed to talk to any of the other two girls about what we were doing in individual sessions. So I don't know what their experience was like. And all of those things of like give up your dog, things like that were done on an individual basis, or you should start your company, were all done on an individual basis that I wasn't allowed to talk about with the other two girls. So Chris didn't know anything. Like, I just didn't tell him because we weren't supposed to talk about it. So I'd like have these really trippy experiences on drugs in the woods. And then I'd come home and he'd be like, "How was it?" I'd be like, "Oh, good. We did some magic. There was some chanting and that was it." And like we moved on. Um, and it was when I left. So most cult survivors, when they leave a cult, it's because they like woke up, saw that it was a cult, and then left. I just left because I was miserable. And then when I started actually having conversations with people and I was like, "Oh yeah, and we did this, and this," everybody was like, "Oh no, you were in a fucking cult." Like, yeah, no, you were 100% in a cult. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it was, yeah, when I left that I was like, "Oh shit. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was in a cult the whole time."
Yeah. Did she ever tell you to like leave your husband, or was she supportive of you being married?
So I don't like talking about this part, but it's okay. My husband works in finance and is very high up in some companies, like in a company, in the finance realm, and she was expensive. She also wanted us to buy a bunch of expensive shit. So whenever I brought up any frustration that I had in my marriage, it was always, "You have to stay with him." I don't know 100% if she was saying this to other girls. One of the girls in the group was divorced. The other one was married. Um, and I remember she was polyamorous, and I remember having that, like, her and Lux had a conversation at an event that we were all at, and Lux saying that she needed to leave her boyfriend. So I do feel like there was probably a little bit of messing with the love lives of the people in the group, but I don't think that it was based off of like her own feelings for any of us. I think that that is more of a "I know you and I love you and I care about you and I want what's best for you and I know what's best for you. So because I know what's best for you, I'm going to tell you what to do because I know what's best for you and I can be objective and you are too invested to be objective."
Yeah. And then so getting into more of like the, I guess, juicy stuff of the cult, like what kind of crazy stuff were you doing? Or I guess like where did it go from here? You mentioned some drugs in the woods and talking to gods, all that kind of stuff. So what was some of the like? Were you guys just living in tents in the woods, or what was the? How long were you in the woods for?
They were usually weekend, so we'd usually either go out, like, it was almost always Friday and we would drive back on Sunday. So you'd only need to take like one day off from work. The day that we went to Lux's apartment, it was just like a 1 day Friday kind of a situation. We would go to Airbnbs. It was always an Airbnb, which is why I'm like fucking scarred from those shits and I always stay in hotels now. I'm like, fuck Airbnbs. But we would
I've
go to
actually
an air.
never stayed in an Airbnb. I don't really know why not, but I don't think that I ever have. I've like never used the app or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. And like sometimes people suggest that. I'm like, "I'm not fucking doing an Airbnb." I travel all the time for work now, and one of our events is like nowhere near a hotel because it's kind of on the outskirts of a city. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I refuse to do an Airbnb. I refuse to do like a VRBO or like any of those shits. I'm not staying at a thing that is not a hotel motel Holiday Inn. Um,
Yeah.
but she did it so that we would all have our own rooms. She was big on us all having our own rooms. And we always had to pay for our quarter of the Airbnb. And we would get there like Friday night, we'd have food, whatever. Then Saturday, we would do like a bunch of sessions kind of back to back to back. There were four roles. There were four roles and four parts to the Saith session. So the first part is bringing in the helping spirits. The second part was like kind of the chanting to bring the person who was channeling down to the like channeling state. The third part was like the talking back and forth period, and then the fourth part was like waking them up and ending the ritual. The four roles were the leader, who was always Lux, the anchor, who was protecting, like who was in charge of like the protecting spirits and making sure that they were there and chill. There was the tender who took care of the horse, and then the horse was the person who was channeling. After our first Airbnb session, it was determined that me and Jade who was one of the other girls, were the best horses. So we kind of like traded off whenever we would horse. Um, so I was the one who did a lot of the channeling for the group.
And the channeling is just kind of like is it summoning the demons or what is the
We don't
channeling?
believe in demons.
Or
So
not demons, sorry,
there's no demons,
gods.
just the gods.
Gods.
Uh
Some
but
witches do some witches like do worship Satan, right? Or no, is that
oh
a
yeah,
completely
yeah.
different thing? Yeah. But
Yeah,
you
there's
guys did.
absolutely like satanic leaning, like who work with like Baphomet and things like that. There's absolutely those people out there. Um, I know them. I don't really like work with them on a spiritual basis, but like I've absolutely done events. I've talked to them. They're pretty chill people. Um, so before the ritual, that's when I would smoke the henbane. I wouldn't like smoke it like it's weed or a cigarette or something like that. Basically, it would go on a charcoal disc, usually with some other kind of like resin. Historically, the Volar, the Volar was the name of the Norse witches who would perform Save. So a singular is vulva. But the Volar would use juniper resin. So it would be juniper resin mixed with a little henbane, and then I just kind of inhale it off the charcoal disc. And then when you do something like that, that can already, like, just based off of what's in henbane, have you tripping. And then you combine it with things like a bunch of chanting and this whole like ritual, it can definitely, regardless of whether or not you believe in what's coming out of me while I channel, uh, it can definitely lead to some really interesting and hard to explain experiences.
And then like when you're channeling, are you speaking for the god or does the god show up or is there where's like the voice come from?
Oh yeah, the voice that came out of my mouth was not my own. Said things that I could not know. For instance, one of the things we had something called a validation question every time we went under. It was one of the first questions that were asked. And the validation question would be, okay, Loki, just to use one as an example, what tarot card do I keep on my altar to you? Right? And that would be something that say, if I'm channeling and Lux is asking me this question, I don't fucking know. Like there'd be no way for me to know what tarot card that Lux would keep on her Loki altar. Um, so if the question is answered correctly, that would be like a sign that, okay, Melissa has gone bye-bye and now Loki is talking through her mouth.
Okay. Do you remember like what was being said, or at that point were you kind of just totally gone and don't even remember what you were saying?
So according to Jade, she had like completely blacked out and didn't remember anything. Odin said in one session that I watched, and I will say, like, I watched, but I couldn't interact, like, I couldn't partake in anything. Like, anything that was happening in my body was just like me as a silent observer. But then what would always end up happening is after the fact, someone would ask questions or they would like talk about something that happened, and then I'd remember more and I'd be like, oh yeah, when that happened, I could tell that Odin was really angry. Or I remember describing Odin as butthurt once because I used the technical terms. But yeah, so I was like, okay, yeah, Odin is really butthurt about that question. I don't know why, but he was feeling butthurt. And when I would say that to say like Lux or Jade or Liz or any of the other people in the group, they would say, like that makes sense. Like I just kind of conveyed things that there was no way for me to know. And it happened very frequently when I was channeling.
Okay. And what kind of drugs were you doing? You kind of mentioned a drug that I don't even think I've heard of.
Oh, henbane. So
And
henbane is an herb. It like naturally occurs. It's been used in like witchcraft rituals for centuries. If you've ever heard of a witch's flying ointment, witches' flying ointments are usually infused with henbane, and they were ointments because henbane can fucking kill you, and it is absolutely a poison. It's in the nightshade family. It can stop your heart, among a bunch of other really shitty things that happened. Um, it's not like like LSD, or magic mushrooms or any of those, but I think like of things that are the most commonly known to people, um, that would be the closest. It gets you tripping balls.
okay. And then do you so in general, do you pretty much once you take it, you kind of just not really remember what happens?
For me, I always remembered. I just couldn't do anything in the moment.
Okay. And then how long does it last for?
Uh, all right. So strictly speaking, it would last for the ritual, but there was one ritual that we did where I was like, I remember driving home and shit was really off. Now, like, we do these on Saturday, we drive home Sunday, right? So I drove home on Sunday, shit was weird. Monday, when I was working, my boss was like, you're acting a little weird. Like, nothing too crazy. Like, I wasn't doing anything like dangerous to the kids or anything like that. But it was just kind of like, oh, like, you're just weird. And I was like, oh, I met up with my coven this weekend and, it was just really hard for me emotionally. And I'm sorry that I'm like bringing that up to sessions now. I will try to calm my shit. And this like happens. Therapists are people too. So like sometimes you experience stuff at home and you try to turn it off, but you can't always. Um, and when I met with Lux on Tuesday night, I was like, hey, Lux, like something's askew. Like something's weird. And she's like, oh, you probably have a little bit of Odin still inside of you and that like you didn't come back all the way. And I remember just being like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't know this was a possibility. You're supposed to be a Spokona, so you should know after interacting with me that something is askew and like help to bring me back. Like, what the fuck? It's kind of that was a what the fuck moment, and so was the It's a drug. So I went to Salem, Massachusetts, as spooky bitches do, especially in the fall. But I went to Salem, Massachusetts, and I went around to all these witch shops, and none of them had henbane. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to pick up henbane because Lux keeps providing the henbane. So, like, I want to help her out and buy my own henbane. And I remember going to one store that I like really liked, and I was like, do you guys have henbane? And they were like, no. And when I met with Lux that week, I was like, hey, none of the stores have henbane. Like, that's so fucking weird. Like, they should totally have it. And she goes, Melissa, it's a narcotic. So you were basically going around Salem trying to find out if they had drugs.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is it legal?
No, 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 it's not legal. It's not legal. So it was like, oh. And I'm like, that would have been nice to know. Because at this point, it'd been like half a dozen times that I had inhaled henbane, if not more. So, like, would have been real cool for you to tell me at any point that it was drugs. And like the other thing too,
Yeah.
that's like so crazy to me is I was straight edge in college. I only drank like maybe 3 times in college. I hadn't smoked weed until I was 24. I think I've smoked weed maybe 5 times throughout the course of my life. I've gotten blackout wasted a fuck ton of times, but like weed, not really my thing. I had my first half of an edible at our first retreat. Like I'm not a drug ass bitch. And Lux knew that about me. So I feel like at some point in time, you should have mentioned that it was a narcotic before I was going around Salem, Massachusetts asking for henbane.
Yeah. What did you think it was? How did you inhale it?
I just inhaled it on like a charcoal. So like,
Like you kind of it was just smoke coming up and you kind of just take it
yeah, it was
in.
just smoke kind of coming up from a charcoal.
So
Um,
you thought it might have been more of just kind of like a smoke type thing, like that just kind of like you didn't know
well,
it was like a hardcore drug. You just thought it was like a almost like a what do you call it? Like a yeah, I don't even know, like a scent or like a
yeah, like
what do they call
people
those?
burn sage or
Yeah.
people burn like stuff like that. And I had heard about henbane
Yeah.
dozens of times. I'd been a witch since I was like 16. So like I
Yeah.
had heard about henbane tons of times. I just didn't know like the full extent of it because it's not
Yeah.
a plant that I work with traditionally. It's not
Yeah.
something I grow. It's not something like I had access to. So I didn't really investigate. Like I knew it was out there. I knew it was a thing. But if someone told you that nutmeg was, a narcotic, you'd be like, oh, I've heard of nutmeg. I've probably eaten nutmeg. Didn't
Yeah.
know it could make me high.
Yeah, like I've never heard of henbane, so I wouldn't know. So yeah, so how long did the whole thing last for? How many women were in the cult?
So the cult is still like the coven is still covening. It's still culting. It's still around. They are still together. I'm the only one who left. I don't know if they have more recruits or if they have like more because I had to work with Lux for a year before I could do Saith. Or 2 years before I could do Saith. So I don't know if they have like more people in the pipeline since I left. I've been out for like about a year and a half at this point. So yeah, I don't know if they're like trying to replace me. I just know that they're still together. Um, and they're still doing that thing.
How many people were in it while when you were in it?
It was me, Lux, Jade, and Liz. So there were only 4 of us. It wasn't a huge cult. When I talked to someone about it and they were like, "Oh, I thought there were like dozens of people." I was like, "Oh no, it was literally just the 4 of us."
Yeah, and it was pretty much you just on weekends, every weekend, or just and then how long did it last? How long were you in it for?
So the ritual itself would take about 2 hours.
Well, I mean,
It
how long
depended.
were you in the cult for?
I was in the cult for 4 years.
Okay, and then like every weekend you would meet with them, or how often?
Not so it was weird because so after our first Saith session, we got quote unquote paid gigs. we got two paid gigs. One was in North Carolina, one was in Vermont. And the quote unquote paid gigs, I put that in air quotes because one, we didn't get paid at all. And then the other one, I got paid like maybe $100, like somewhere around plus or minus 20 of $100, which didn't even cover jack shit. Like it didn't even cover like gas there and back. You know what I mean? Um, and and tolls and all the other stuff that's associated with driving for 4 hours to get to Vermont. Um, so yeah, we had like the quote unquote paid gigs. So when we had the paid gigs after our first Saith session, it was more of like, we need to train because we have these paid gigs. And it was as often as we could. So it was like 3 times, I want to say, before North Carolina. But we were all like working. Like I was working. Jade and Liz didn't work. They just had like their businesses. And Lux had a job. Like she had a full-time job. So we kind of tried to plan these retreats around our own personal lives, and that was a little bit difficult. So we only met up, I want to say 3 times before before North Carolina, and then again for Vermont.
And then what were the paid gigs doing?
Oh, it was doing save. So if you can do a ritual where you can talk to gods, there's a bunch of people who want to talk to gods.
Yeah.
And will pay you money to do it. So the one in Vermont had like tickets that people could buy. That was like a whole thing. People could buy tickets to talk to Freya, for the one in Vermont. And a bunch of people did. I want to say there was like 20 to 30 people there. If not, maybe possibly a little bit more. And the one in North Carolina, we were doing it for like the person who owned the house on the beach that we were staying in.
So with like 20 or 30 people, would it be like you four, then like one person would come at a time, or like all 20 people would be kind of like in like a circle as you guys were doing it in the middle, or
So for the Vermont one, it was in a decommissioned church. So that was kind of cool. We were on the altar of the church. So like it
wow.
was like not a church anymore. We were on the altar. We did the ritual kind of like in front of the audience. And once we had Freya kind of like in, Jade was horsing at the time because Freya doesn't like me as her horse. Um, Everybody kind of like lined up and asked a question to Freya and put an offering to Freya.
Okay, and it was kind of like in a decommissioned church, like in the woods or something. Like, was it pretty like
Oh, it was
creepy,
in
or
Brattleboro, Vermont.
what is
I
that?
shouldn't give too many specifics because fucking people can Google it.
But in general, was it like in the middle of the woods, or was it kind of
Oh
just a
no, it's like
church
right over the border from Mass to Vermont. Like it's in Vermont, but it's not like deep, deep in Vermont.
just in a city? Like,
Yep.
yeah. Okay. So what like what was some of the craziest stuff you've seen? Like, have you ever seen um any type of like levitation type stuff, or was it mostly just kind of like talking to pretty much just talking to the gods?
It was definitely talking to the gods. Some weird stuff was like Loki refused to talk whenever Jade horsed him, so he would draw pictures.
But then how
That
would
was
it draw
fun.
pictures? Like, would you literally be drawing the picture through him?
Yeah, so we would put, so like you have this veil when you do save, and sometimes the eyes are closed, sometimes they're not. But we realized like Loki wasn't talking. And someone thought to like give him a notebook and a pen. And when we gave him a notebook and a pen, he would draw stuff on like with Jade's body. And Jade didn't have her eyes open. So, I mean, they weren't like super good drawings. Let's be 100% real. But like he would draw stuff. If you ask him a question, I remember Liz asked once, like, can you roast me? Um, and he said, light roast or dark? And she said light roast and did, I think that one was the duck, but one of them was a duck. So he like drew a duck and said like, you're an angry duck.
Where did he
Um,
like draw it on?
yeah, on the notebook. So yeah, like
Okay.
he had a notebook. We put a notebook on Jade's lap, and then put a pen in Jade's hand, and then he drew on the notebook.
Okay. And then, so I mean, was there? You mentioned in that you like talked to Forbes about a crazy, not suitable for work story. Which one was that?
That's a whole other fucking part of my goddamn life.
So that's not even
Well,
part of this cult then.
no.
Okay, what is that part of?
So I was 540 pounds and I lost over 250 and became a fitness instructor. That's how I got involved in like movement therapy for people with ASD. I was working with people primarily with schizophrenia at the time. And I noticed that it did a lot for people who struggled with verbal communication, because they could like hit things, they could like do stuff. And then I wanted to kind of parlay the being a fitness instructor into like actual therapy and like working on it as an intervention that was clinically proven.
Okay, so was that mostly with schizophrenics or autistic kids or
So
both? Or
originally it was with schizophrenic adults. Um, that was what I did while I was getting my master's in social work. I was working with schizophrenic adults. Um, Not all of them were schizophrenic, but that like broad category in the DSM were most of the clients. And I had seen through working as a fitness instructor with that population, because basically when you're a social worker, they're often like, hey, you've got this like weird niche skill. Let's see if we could like make a group about it or make an intervention about it. And for me, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a licensed fitness instructor. Let's make like a movement group where people can like move and hit things and like dance to music and stuff. And I noticed that it was having a big impact for the people who had low verbal, we call it negative symptoms in schizophrenia. So people who had high rates of negative symptoms. So I wanted to kind of, I always been interested in teens. I like knew a person who was the superintendent of a school where most of the kids were diagnosed with ASD. It was a high school, like a specialty high school. So I was like, hey, I would love to study this from a clinical perspective and see if there's positive health outcomes in verbal communication. And yeah, the Forbes article is about like side hustles and how I turned my weight loss story into being a fitness instructor. Whenever I get
okay,
to like write the memoir of like, or the memoirs, because I feel like it's gonna be a fucking trilogy at this point. First one is gonna be called "I Thought There'd Be Less Boob Sweat," um, because it's funny, and also I did think that once I lost a fuck ton of weight, I would have less boob sweat. The second one is gonna be the cult story, and then the third one is gonna be all about how I hopefully grow this business to like a multi-million-dollar company, then sell it, and I don't know, retire in Kyoto.
do you feel like part of the reason why the company does good is because the fact that you're a witch, and like in general, witches kind of tend to get paid more because it's such like a kind of like fringe, um what's the word, like yeah, fringe thing. Like are people like, oh man, like I like I'm gonna pay you more because you must have some sort of um special knowledge with this fragrance, you know what I mean?
I think that like the witch thing is a little bit of why people buy from me. I think so. I hate the term clean fragrance, even though I fucking use that on my website. But
I don't even
um,
know actually what that means exactly. Is it kind of like a natural fragrance or?
yeah, so I'm not a fully natural perfumer because there's some stuff like deer testicles that this is all stuff like we cover on Sillage and Sorcery, so plug. But musk is deer testicles. So there's a bunch of
Whoa.
stuff. Castoreum is beaver secretions. There's a ton of stuff. Ambergris is whale vomit. A bunch of them like come from animals. Then we also have stuff like Lily of the Valley is toxic. So anytime you have Lily of the Valley listed as a note in your perfume, it's gonna 100% be synthetic, or else it's gonna kill you. Um,
And Lily of the
so
Valley is from like Breaking Bad. Did you watch Breaking Bad?
I got like I think I like missed out on some of the seasons. Like I think I like missed out on the last like 2 or 3 seasons. So they talk about I'm wearing Lily of the Valley earrings actually. But yeah, that's
Yeah, did
cool.
you see that part of Breaking Bad though?
No. I saw the throwing the piece on the roof part.
Oh, you only got that far. Yeah, there's a I don't it's really kind of like a spoiler, so I don't really want to give it away, but it's kind of hard to describe what happens without giving it away. But basically he uses Lily of the Valley for a very bad thing.
Surprise, surprise. When the show
Yeah.
is called Breaking Bad and is about a teacher turned drug dealer.
Yeah, but that's the only reason why I know of Lily of the Valley, I think. Yeah. But so if you use Lily of the Valley, you can use it, but you can't use you were saying you have to use the synthetic version because the real version will kill you.
Yep.
So
Um
the other stuff, so you literally take like the beaver or the or whatever it is, the deer balls or whatever, like you literally take the stuff
So
from
I use
the animals.
synthetics for things like that. So I would say I'm a cleaner brand where if I can get an essential oil of it and an essential oil of it is going to be skin safe and it's not going to give you some crazy reaction or something that's not going to kill you, absolutely I'm going to use it. If it's anything that comes from an animal, I'm using a synthetic version. I'm not castrating a deer for your musk.
Does
Um,
anybody actually do any of that to get the real thing? And
I
by
know
synthetic
for
version, do you mean like it's literally like processed like in a
yeah,
lab or
yeah,
whatever? Yeah.
synthetic is yeah, just like through like the art of perfumery through the centuries that we've had it, they can isolate the part of, say, civet. If you've ever heard of civet as a note in any of the fragrances that you wear, civet is literally mongoose poop. So civet is a type of mongoose. It is their poop that is
So
used in
for some
perfumery.
reason, their poop and then whales vomit like smells good.
Yeah, I don't know how they. I mean, honestly, it was probably some freaky fucker that figured out that it smells good and that you should put it on your body.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
But it's things like that that like ambergris, we found out that the part of it that has the good smells is ambroxan, and ambroxan is used in a ton of really famous fragrances, and it's been used for a very long time. And that's the kind of thing that like I'm gonna use ambroxan, I'm not gonna use ambergris, and the reason I'm gonna use it is because ambroxan is naturally derived, so it comes from ambergris, but it doesn't involve whale vomit.
And where
So
do
it's
you get it
things like
from?
that.
Just like
Oh,
you can buy it off like from like a lab or something.
yeah, yeah. There's tons of perfumery companies that produce. I think there's certain, it's a whole thing we talk about on the podcast, but there's certain molecules that are like limited that like only a certain brand can use it. But there's a bunch that you could buy directly from the chemical manufacturer and get it. You can also get it like paraben and phthalate free. Like you can do all of those sorts of things now with perfumery that you couldn't do years ago. So I try to use naturals wherever possible, and that's kind of how I phrase it to my customers. But I think like the biggest reason why people buy from me is I'm cheaper than almost everything at Sephora, if not everything at Sephora. And shit is expensive now. And you
Yeah.
don't want to have stuff like from Bath and Body Works where it's formaldehyde, it's a bunch of really sketchy ingredients that you don't know what you're putting on your body, but you also can't afford any of like the 100% natural companies because that shit's expensive. And like cost of living nowadays is nuts. And my company, Sif Sniffs, tries to be that gap. So we try to have clean ingredients wherever we can, but we're also not going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. You're not paying
Yeah.
for the fact that there's Prada written on this bottle. You're not paying for the fact that it is Baccarat Rouge 540 and $300 for a tiny ass bottle.
And then do you guys do you sell any like besides fragrances, do you sell any like witchcraft type stuff? Like no.
Nope.
What would that even be? Like
I'm just perfumes.
just
There's
for okay.
tons of people out there who are selling crystals, who are selling candles, who are selling all manner of. I know someone who sells spell kits. That's just not my vibe. Do I think like eventually I'll probably make candles and lotions and all the other fun shit? Sure, but right now I'm super comfy in my lane of making fragrances that like inherently have witchcraft infused in them. One of my fragrances is called Hatherbloat, and it's honey because the god Hath, who's also known as Golveg, is associated with bees. She also was set on fire a fuck ton of times, so I put tobacco in there because that's something we light on fire. And then vanilla to kind of like round out the fragrance. And there is witchcraft involved in like the naming, the making, the ingredients that go into a scent. But I get people who buy from me all the time who are just like, hey, I can afford this and it smells good and I like it. So fuck it, give me two.
Okay. So going back to like the witch stuff, like I said, like the beginning, I mean honestly, I really don't. I I kind of come off strong, I think, when I say I don't find it realistic or maybe even believe in a lot of the stuff. I don't really believe in most stuff, spiritual stuff. I mean, I was like raised Christian and I still like probably consider myself Christian, but when it comes to a lot of this type of stuff, I just don't believe it. It's nothing like negative or like I'm not saying I don't believe you or anything. It's more just like I very rarely have anything, or I really almost never have had anything spiritual happen to me. But also I maybe I'm scared of it, or maybe I just don't really kind of get involved with it at all. I really don't. To be honest with you, it does kind of scare me, and I don't really want to use like a Ouija board type thing or any of it. So for somebody like me, and like I kind of know it through movies, like I don't know if you saw the movie The Witch, or those types of movies where like it kind of shows, like in The Witch specifically, it's like they're living out in the woods. I think they're like naked and like they steal the baby, and then like
Yep.
at some point they're like they cause chaos in the family, and then they like kind of are like rising or whatever, they're levitating. So I mean, do you believe in most all of this stuff, or do you only believe in like kind of like what you did? Like what do you think is like, do you believe in kind of like casting spells, flying with the broom, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff? Where do you kind of draw the line, I guess, on all of it in terms of what you believe or what you don't believe, you know what I mean?
So my husband is very much like you. He's an accountant, so he's always like math, facts, numbers, sense, logic, right? He's a Capricorn, so checks out. And I think the way to kind of explain how magic works in my life, and I am not the most powerful of all witches, um, is to give you this really fun example. When I lived in New York City, I my license got suspended and then it got I don't even know the step above suspended, but like expired, something like that. Like I had to like start from jump again. I also had to like pay all these tickets so that my license wouldn't be suspended and I could take the learner permit test again, whatever. And it was a hardcore pain in the ass. I had to call different states because now I lived in Connecticut. My license was suspended in New York. I couldn't find where the tickets were to pay them, even though I had the money to pay them. I'd gone to the DMV a fuck ton of times when I lived in Brooklyn, and I had paid like $3,000 and I still didn't get anything. I had hired a lawyer. The lawyer never contacted me, but got a fucking grand of my money. So, like, it had been very expensive and had been very much a pain in the ass and I was not having it. When I had my pulmonary embolism, this one deity that I work with, like, kept saying hi. And he kept being like, hey, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, I cannot deal with you right now. You do not do anything around health. If you really want to help me, it is sucked balls not having a license and not being able to drive while needing to go to the ER at 2 in the morning. So I was like, if you can fix that, that would be great. That would be a great help. 2 weeks later, my husband comes into the living room, and I will never forget this. He's just like, what did you do? What did you do? You did something. I don't know what you did, but you did some witchy shit. You did something. And he handed me a letter from the state of New York that they had changed the laws and my license was no longer suspended. I could apply for a license in any state that I wanted to. And I had overpaid my tickets. So I had to fill out this form and I would get a check for $750.
Wow.
So you could say that's a coincidence. Absolutely, right? Like you could
Yeah.
100% say that is a coincidence, right? Um, I, based off of my own spirituality, prefer to believe that that is not, and that that is the answer to me telling this particular God, hey, help me get my license back.
Yeah. But I mean, so when it comes to like all of it though, like is there anything that you would say like where you draw the line where you're like, okay, like because I feel like what most people know about witches is comes from movies or whatever. So most of it's and I obviously like when somebody tells me something like I believe you, I believe what you were saying about all of your stuff. But is there anything where you draw the line where you're like, okay, well, there are witches, but they're not flying brooms or they don't really use kind of like what's it called? Like the where they like the
A
cauldron or
cauldron?
the
I
cauldron or whatever.
absolutely have a cauldron. It's in
So,
the back room.
so you have a cauldron, but is there
Yeah.
anything that you don't believe in? Like, do you believe in witches flying on brooms?
Yeah, I mean, witches flying on brooms historically came out of people tripping balls on henbane, right? So that was the flying that they were doing. And the broom, okay.
Not literal flying,
Yeah,
but
they weren't literally flying. They were tripping balls. So it was flying, but not in an actual literal sense, right? And the broom thing, once again, from a historical perspective, right? Henbane, super fucking deadly, can kill you. So they would make the witch's flying ointment. They would put it on the ends of the brooms, and without getting too graphic, it would get placed into certain parts of the anatomy because it was a mucousy area that could absorb the henbane, but at like lower doses to like not kill you. So like that's where a lot of historically like the brooms and the flying come from, right? But they
okay.
weren't just kind of like
Wow.
the Eleusinian mysteries, right? That was a lot of again people tripping balls because we've been tripping balls for millennia, right? People tripping balls and saying that they were having experiences in ancient Greece. Um, so it just kind of depends. I will say there have been things both in the cult and when I have left the cult that I cannot explain. I will say there's one deity that's been like really fucking loud and like really wants to me to work with them lately, like really loud. And some of the things that have happened have been so overt in my life that even my husband is like, "Oh, is that insert this deity here?" And I'm like, well, I'm not saying it is, but like that's a weird experience to have. It was literally a certain animal associated with this deity. Two of them were in front of my car as we were driving home from the event we were doing this weekend in Delaware. So, like, even my husband was like, what are the odds that this animal would be in front of your car, like as we're driving, and like that we hadn't seen like a ton of, we were in bumfuck nowhere, right? So we were in literally it was like farms everywhere we were for this Ren fair. But even he was just like, what's the odds of that happening? And I was like, you can believe in magic or you cannot believe in magic. I'm gonna choose to believe in magic in this instance, right? That this deity is really being fucking loud. Um, or I can take that as something not spiritual at all and just be like, oh, okay, there's two of these animals in front of the road.
Yeah, yeah. What animals was it?
Oh, I can't tell you because if I do, I'll give it away. No,
It would give what away?
Odin's been really loud. So it was two big black birds, and ravens are associated with, and they were like raven size, like they were not crows. They were raven size, like gigantic ass fucking two black birds right in front of where I was driving. And I like slowed down as we were coming up on them, and then they flew away. And my husband was next to me in the car, and he's just like, "Is that Odin?" And I was like, I'm not saying it's not Odin. I'm just saying that he's been particularly loud. I've seen a lot of stuff with him lately. And now, literally right in front of me are two ravens. I don't know if they're actually ravens, but two big ass black birds that looked really fucking raveny right in front of me.
Yeah. And are you able, like, it sounded like you told your work or whatever that, like, does your work know about this? Like, are they like fine with it? Because I mean, I don't know. I'm not judgmental, but I feel like some people could maybe be judgmental about it. Or do you feel like some people are, like your work? Or
Well, I'm not a therapist anymore. And like I own my own company, so I am my work.
oh, so you quit
Um,
being a therapist because of your fragrance company now?
yeah. So now I'm
Okay.
not a therapist at all because of the fragrance company. It's just the fragrance company is a lot. Um, but and I also do everything myself. I make the perfume, I have an assistant for boxing the perfume, but like every single perfume is bottled by me. Everyone is formulated by me. All of those online orders are filled by either me or my husband. They are taken to the post office by me. Everything is me. I book all the events. I go to all the events. I make the stock for all the events. Like that's all on me. So that's a lot of work. And I could not put in, I tried. I tried to get my old job back from part-time. And I got to a place where I was like, there's no fucking way. No time to like add on 20 hours a week of being a therapist on top of everything else I'm already doing. So
Do
I'm
you
no
enjoy
longer,
this more too than being a therapist? Or
depends on the day. I think
yeah,
like being an entrepreneur is stressful and there's shit that sucks. But then there's like some really awesome moments. Like we had a sales goal this weekend and we hit the sales goal on Sunday. And then we were like, all right, well, let's like move the goalpost a little bit. And then we hit that sales goal. And then we hit another sales goal. And I was like, I think we're just done. Like, I think we've made it for our sales for this weekend. We're gonna clap, we're gonna pat ourselves on the back and, be ready to go back to Connecticut tomorrow. Um, but when I was a therapist, yeah, I absolutely told them. But I was like, oh, I'm a witch. I'm in this coven, but we're all therapists, so we're all like the super liberal, okay with everybody and everything kind of people. Not
yeah,
that all therapists are super liberal, but they tend to be more open-minded than, say, psychiatrists, who would be like, you're talking to gods, you psycho bitch. I
yeah.
need to give
But
you an antipsychotic.
in general, do you feel like there's anybody you tell that like is kind of like not into it or whatever? Like they're kind of like, oh, you're a witch. It's kind of like judgmental or whatever.
Well,
Or
I
no?
surround myself with people who are okay with it. I do events all the time. Like I'm doing a con this weekend. I did a Ren fair last weekend. I'm doing a Gothic market in 2 weeks. I do stuff all over the place, and every once in a while I get a person that might be weirded out by the witch thing. But for the most part, the people I associate and surround myself with are also witches and pagans and into various methods of woo. Um, so I've got that going for me.
Yeah. And then you meant in terms of like the cauldron or anything else that you do, like what do you do with the cauldron? Like what do you put in it? Like,
Oh, the culture, A, it's like this big. I've had it since I was like 16. I got it in Salem when I was a kid. And it's really good because it's fire safe. So a common thing that a lot of witches do that's a really easy spell is and now because like everybody's into like manifesting and shit, they're like making things that you could do it as well. But like you write your intention or what you want on a piece of paper, you light it on fire, you put it in the cauldron so it doesn't set everything in your house on fire. And then you're done. Easy spell.
so it's more like a kind of like a, it's not like an old fashioned cauldron where you're put in.
Oh no, it's cast iron. It's heavy as shit. Like it's a cast iron cauldron, but you don't like I'm not making potions like Harry Potter in it.
Yeah. Have you ever like got like drawn blood or anything like that to like put in it or do anything? No.
Blood magic can get really weird. Like there are some people who seal spells and stuff with blood or try to do spells and like with blood. Like that's not my journey. I do know that there are witches out there who do. But in for me in particular, like anything to do with the body, unless it's putting perfume on it, I don't want to have any piece of it.
Okay. And then like going back to the cult, was there anything else that we didn't cover? Like, is there any other crazy stories within the cult that you guys did? I mean, was it mainly just like you four girls hanging out in like Airbnb and then just doing like talking to the gods? And did you do any other drugs, or was it mainly just
No,
that one drug?
I was henbane to get under. Jade was marijuana, so like pretty standard. Um, the if there is a fun story that is exclusive to your podcast and has not been on anything else, um, when we talk about like the hardcore emotional manipulation, one of the things in the first section of the witch training was that you had to examine yourself, right? So there was a lot of this confessional aspect with Lux of like, okay, I'm meeting with you every week and I had to go over kind of like all of this stuff about my life, characteristics of mine, hangups of mine, biases that I have, because much like when you're a therapist, during my MSW training, we did a lot of the same shit, but you have to kind of know your own perspective so you can judge things in a therapy setting, clinically, in a witch setting without bias, right? So, a big example is I know, especially when I work with teens, I tend to believe the teenager more than I believe the parent. I always think the parent's fucking lying, right? So if the parent and the teen are conflicting, just who I am as a person, I always think the parent is lying and the kid is telling the truth. So I know that that's a bias I have. So if I'm doing a family session, I have to remember, like, okay, Melissa, you're gonna inherently believe the kid before you believe the parent. So really take a step back and observe that situation before you do anything or make any kind of assessments, right? Ask follow-up questions. Figure out, okay, we're having conflicting reports. Maybe it's a matter of perspective, maybe it's a matter of interpretation, things like that. So for the first part of my witch training, I was doing all of that just from like a witchy perspective. Then after working with her for, I shit you not, over 3 years, um, I had been working with one deity forever. And I was like, hey, it's like weird that I don't have a girl deity that like is reaching out to me. And she was like, all right, let's make our $90 hour-long session all about which deity connects with you. So her first question was, what, like, who do you like of the girls? Like, who do you think is cool? And I'm like, I've always liked Sif, right? And I remember saying in our sessions at this point 3 years ago, when we were in the pandemic and we were all on Zoom having these sessions, saying I really liked Sif. And I remember Lux just being like, fuck, fuck. And she was really angry and she was like, kind of like punching her couch at the time. And I was like, what the fuck? And she goes, well, let me tell you what we know about Sif in like the larger Norse pagan community. And he's like, and she goes, she loves to sing. She loves to host parties. She loves to have people over. She's a little vain. And she's like describing everything that I had said were like my positive and negative attributes in the first section 2 years ago, 3 years ago, however it was when we first started. And I was like, Lux, how did you not put two and two together? Like, how did this? I have told you all of this. I've confessed all of my attributes. I've talked about this with you multiple times. Sif is a big enough goddess that, like, eventually, if you're reading stuff, you're gonna come across her. It's not like she's in fucking Marvel, for God's sake, right? Like, she's pretty legit. And I was like, you didn't come across Sif and connect that, like, me and Sif were basically the same fucking person? Like, how? And I remember that being like one of the big things that for me, like, really broke my trust in her. And she kind of played it off as like oh, I just didn't put two and two together. And I'm like, either you're an idiot and I'm paying you and you're not as smart as you tell me that you are, or you're intentionally holding back my spiritual progress for your own personal whatever. And I was like, or you don't know me and like don't really understand me the way that you tell me that you do in like all of the love bombing that she was doing in the cult. And I remember then reaching out to Sif, and the first thing she said was, finally, like, finally you found me. Like, she was doing everything too. And that to me is a level of unforgivable that is not okay. But yeah, so that's like the Sif story, and that's why my company is named Sif Sniffs, and that's why I go by Sif Your Daughter. I'm like, because I am the same as this goddess, and you fucking held her from me for 3 goddamn years.
Do you feel like she was asking the questions in the beginning to do like that cult thing where like they like get information to use against you or whatever? Like, so later on, if you want to leave, they'll like kind of blackmail you or whatever. You know what I mean?
I that's something that's kind of been asked of me a lot, is like, was she intentionally trying to start a cult? Was she like really into it from a manipulative perspective? And other people might hear my story and think something completely different, which is totally fine. I don't think she started it to start a cult. I think, and this is just my own personal opinion, Lux would probably disagree. I think she just wanted it for so long. Like, of course, our coven had a name. She had had that name in her head for years before she had met any of us. I think she just wanted this so bad that she wanted to hold on to it so hard. And like, I am a person. I am not this ideal that you've kind of held to your own standard for years. And I think me, Melissa, got lost in the sauce. And it was just the I'm finally getting the thing I have wanted for so long. I'm going to hold on to it and try to take care of it the best that I can. But to bring it back to being a therapist, we talk about parenting and like everybody wants to be the perfect parent. And like there is no perfect parent. There is the like good enough parent and a good enough parent for a good enough kid because each kid is different. And if you're a parent with multiple kids, like you're going to have to be a little bit different in how you approach things to each kid because each kid is different. And I think like she just had this perspective of being like the perfect coven leader and forgot to just be the good enough coven leader.
And so at the end, it wasn't really anything like that you thought she was doing wrong necessarily. Like she wasn't like exploiting you. It was just more like you just kind of like got over it at the end. Like you were just like, I just don't really want to deal with this anymore, and just left. It wasn't like a like it wasn't she was doing anything like illegal or anything, right? Like
Yeah, she wasn't doing, I mean, besides giving me henbane, which is totally illegal, but she
yeah,
wasn't doing anything like overtly manipulative, right? Like, I think like there are some moments that you can take a step back and be like, no, that was manipulative. But something I always think about is after the Vermont ritual that like we got paid for, we were burning all of the offerings for Freya because we had to give them to her somehow. And it was like 2 in the morning. We were fucking exhausted. We'd been up, all of us had been up since like 7 in the morning. Um, and she gave all of us used tattoo needles, which is fucking gross. But the tattoo needles were from a tattoo that she'd gotten from her former partner and had been sitting on her Freya altar. And she gave us each a tattoo needle to put into this bonfire to symbolize that like we were her new source of love. So I don't I mean, do I think that Lux can fuck off? Do I think the other two can totally fuck off and I'm in a good space now? Absolutely. But I have a lot of compassion for Lux because I do feel like we were filling an emotional need and a spiritual need for her. Um, in my particular instance, I feel like I just didn't need to be smothered like that. And once she stepped over into messing with my personal life, that's where things got culty. That's where things got fucked up. That's why I left. Um, but her as a person, I think the cult was doing stuff for her too.
yeah. What was the name of the hole or the coven?
Sire, because of course everything's in fucking Old Norse. So yeah, it was called Sire.
So are you still like into the old Norse stuff, or have you transferred to other stuff now, or is it just mainly just Norse now, or
Oh,
for
I'm
you?
still Norse as fuck. Yeah, I'm still Norse as fuck. But I'm I would say like now I'm just like a Norse heathen that like occasionally when I want some shenanigans, I'm like, hey, you want to help? And usually they're like, all right. Um, and it's stuff like the telling the god that I really need my license back. Like it's stuff like that is more of what I do now. Um, Sometimes when it like for Freya, for instance, I just kind of say, "Hey Freya, I like you," and every Friday I do like a little thing for her when I'm at home because lately I've been traveling. So when I'm traveling on a Friday, I'm not doing it because it involves a candle. But um, I think like now I have not done save. I've not done channeling since I left the cult. I'm not super into wanting to do it. Um, but yeah, I will say like I'm still spiritual. I'm still witchy as shit. I'm just going about it in kind of my own way with my own stuff. Um, and I think that you can make every moment magic if you want to.
So if you were to do it now, like, is it mainly kind of just talking to them like through your thoughts, or like, are you?
Yeah, or like a prayer. Like if did you grow up Christian or you grew up
Yeah, I grew up Christian.
right? So like if you grew up Christian, right, it's kind of like a prayer. Except I one of the things that I think sucks for Christians or non-pagans is that because we have so many deities and they have so many flavors and they have all their own kind of quirks, you get kind of like different flavors of all of the deities. So I could be like, yo, Odin, what's up? I need help with this. Or like anytime it rains at a fair and I really don't want it to rain at a fair, I'm always like, hey, Thor, I named my company after your wife. Can you not have it fucking downpour today? That would be lovely. So I can make some money. I could, you know, tout your wife's good name. Maybe don't have a thunderstorm at this Ren Fair this weekend. Right? Like, and sometimes it works. Most of the time it works, which is kind of weird. But sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I do it out loud, and sometimes I think it in my head, and sometimes I do it while lighting a candle in an offering on my Thor altar. Well, I can't do that at a fair, but you get the idea. Like it just kind of comes in different forms, but now it's more of a honor and petition magic than like the channeling and doing henbane in an Airbnb.
And then the whole Marvel universe is based off of, or not the whole Marvel universe, but maybe like that specific movie or whatever it is like based off of the Norse gods, like
Yep,
Loki, Sith. What's the main Thor? Yeah.
Thor.
Who played Sith in the movie?
Um, Not a blonde. And like that's like the one thing that pisses me off because we don't get a lot of physical descriptions on most of the Norse gods, but we know Sif is canonically blonde. Like she's hair that's made out of gold. It's why all of my bottles for Sif Sniffs are gold. They're clear, like the glass is clear, but all the metal is gold. Um, but yeah, not a blonde. I think it's like Jamie something. It's been a minute since I
Somebody
looked
famous or
her up. Someone famous with black hair, and that
yeah.
pissed me off because it was like the
Yeah.
one thing we know is she's blonde.
Okay. Is there anything else from the cult? Like basically, so for 4 years, you guys just got together basically for
Well, it
one
was only
night.
the last year that we got together.
What were
The
you guys doing the first 3 years?
the first year of me working with Lux, it was taking classes with her. It was only after like 6 or 7 months that she agreed to start doing the individual classes with me once a week. And then she was meeting with me once a week for 2 years. And then it was like 2.5 years that we transitioned over to doing the stuff in real life with the other two girls. I knew of them and I had like talked to them, but I'd never met them in real life until our first safe session or like our first retreat at the Airbnb.
So basically, though, for a year, then you guys would get together one night a weekend, get an Airbnb, and
Yeah, it
then
was like once
basically,
every like few months we would get together for like a long 3-day weekend and do safe.
okay, and say it was mainly just talking, like what you described as talking to the gods through the kind of like doing henbane. Did anything else go on like while you were there, like partying, or like would you have other people over? Would you have like guys over and stuff, or was it does it have to be like just females for like
Well,
witches?
historically, Voller are all women. So, I mean, that's gender as a societal construct as a social worker. But um, I think historically, yes, the Voller were all women.
And
Um,
Volar is what is Volar? Is that just like a
Voller is
Norse
a
witch?
Norse witch, yeah.
Okay.
Um, who practices Save, whereas like a Spakona is a Norse witch who practices Spa. And usually Voller did both, Save and Spa. Yeah, Save and Spa. Um, so
Well, I mean, would you do any partying? Like, would no? It was
I
pretty
mean,
much just
usually
like
we
you
were
got.
just so exhausted because a lot of the stage sessions, like the first time we did it, we did four in one day, and like everything was back to back to back. And that's 2 hours of mostly singing, right? Because you only get like a half hour or so with the god, right? But you're like singing all these songs over and over to kind of get the horse into the trance state. Um, so it's exhausting. Like it's so tiring. Just the singing alone is exhausting. Especially when you're doing it like multiple hours and like multiple times in the day. So usually we were just like so exhausted that we'd have like mead because we're Norse and Viking shit. So we'd like drink mead and just kind of like talk. Um, but a whole other problem that I had with the cult is that, as you know, because we're recording this way past my bedtime, I go to bed at like 10 at the latest. Like it's 11:30 here. So clearly I love you. Um, but like I go to bed at like 10 at the latest, right? And they were the typical goth girls who would stay up until like 2, 3 in the morning. Also, only Lux had a job. So the other two could stay up until 3 o'clock and have completely dysregulated sleeping schedules. And it didn't matter because they didn't work a traditional job. Whereas I'm like, oh no, I've got to like wake up and feed the dog or take care of kids or like whatever. So I couldn't have that same level of stay up. So oftentimes they'd be chilling and I'd be like, I'm going to bed. And then I'd wake up at 7 in the morning because it's just when I wake up naturally. And they were like still asleep until like 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's like me. I'm the one sleeping until noon. Yeah, so I think we cover. I mean, did you have any? Well, one. So there it's mostly female witches, but are there some male witches? They're called like warlocks, right? Like, do you ever come into contact with any of them or no?
Oh, so like I think I know a lot of people who are like non-binary, but were assigned male at birth who are witches. Um, I know a lot of people like the neurodivergent, queer, and like gender non-conforming amount of people in the witch community is too damn high. Um, so like even when you said like have guys over, I'm like, yes, I am in a hetero passing relationship, but I think all of us, maybe not Liz, but I think all of us were some level of queer. So like having girls over would have been way better, but we still didn't do that because once again, it was supposed to all be secret and it was only supposed to be between us. Like even doing this is violating so much shit that we were taught in the cult. Um, so yeah, I will
Like
say
even
like
just talking to a guy or
no, just
on a
talking about
podcast?
this in general. Like it was never supposed to leave any of the
Like you weren't
Airbnbs.
supposed to tell anybody. So is she mad that you're telling people now?
I have no idea.
Because you
She's
didn't even
blocked
talk
to
to
hide
her.
heaven. Yeah, she's blocked to high heaven. I've got all of my protecting people looking out for me. I got my own protecting stuff looking out for me. Um, I have like both the spiritual and the mundane ways of having zero contact with them. And if they do reach out, I do not care.
So they haven't reached out since you left, pretty much.
No.
And
The only thing I will say is fucking weird. So I did promise all of the girls in the cult that they would get their own fragrance that like was inspired by them. And Jade knew which fragrance was based off of her. And the day it launched, which was like almost a year after I'd been out of the cult, because it only launched in March, she bought three of my biggest bottles on launch day. And I was
well, that's
like, this is
nice.
fucking crazy. That's what my husband said. Is he was like, "That's nice. Got her money. Okay, cool." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna like cancel the order. I'm just gonna refund her. Like, I don't want to deal with any of the drama." But my husband was like, if you cancel the order, she's gonna look at that as like inciting something or like being retaliatory. So he's like, just fill it like any other order, and just send it to her. And usually I like write a note, like I put a personalized note on all my online orders. I'll be like, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting me, whatever. I think I didn't do that for her order. Took the packing slip, folded it up, and put it in the box and was like, done.
So like you're not cool with like any of them pretty much anymore.
Yeah, no.
It's not
Nor
just
do I
the
want to be.
yeah. And then did you guys do any like was everything an Airbnb or did you ever go out into the woods like like deep in the woods like and just like start like a bonfire? No. So it was all pretty like pretty
Yeah. The closest we ever came to like going into the woods and starting a bonfire is when we did the offerings to Freya, and that was like on someone's property. But like they had already had like a fire pit already established on their property. Which
and
like
what did
that
you
was
offer
the
to
bum. Oh, a bunch of people had brought offerings for Freya when we did the Saith ritual, like the public Saith ritual. Usually it was like small stuff like a flower or like a little gift that they wanted to leave for Freya. And then we put all of that into the bonfire.
never any like dead animals or anything like that?
No.
Well, that's good. Um, but I mean, some witches do that, right? Like the
I know that like there are some practices that involve animals. It's not really done anymore. And a lot of historically where that stuff comes from is we didn't have the same names for things that we have now. So Eye of Newt is like actually some kind of plant that probably doesn't exist anymore because, we have all of this stuff that's now, extinct. But it's stuff like that that was just a nickname for a herb or a plant or something like that. It wasn't an actual Eye of Newt or Tongue of Dog.
yeah, I forgot like what plant it was, but I feel like I heard like a little while back that there was like a plant way back. I think it was during this Greek period or whatever that was like I forgot exactly what it was. It was something like where I don't like if they ate it, it would like make them horny or whatever. And so like it literally went extinct because so many it was something like that where it was like so many men or whatever would eat it. I forgot exactly what it was, but it just reminded me of this. It was during that Greek god period. Yeah, so is there anything else that I missed that you want to go over? I feel like there's more to the cult thing but I don't know, maybe there's not. Maybe it was just pretty, the same thing. Did you ever think about telling anybody about them being a cult after, or was it like not bad enough to where you felt like you needed to like go to like somebody and like tell the whoever like that they're a cult and it's kind of bad. You know what I
Well,
mean?
there's no hierarchy with paganism in general, right? Like there's
Well, I
so
mean like
much.
go like how like there was that one Nexum cult or whatever where like I don't know if you heard about that one that
Yeah.
Nexium or whatever where like the guy was I mean he was doing some really bad stuff like with do you know what I'm talking about with
Yeah, nothing like with Keith Raniere, like he was doing
yeah
literal crimes. Nothing we
yeah
were doing, I mean, outside of procuring henbane, which is such like a low level drug offense, even if they did find anything. Like the odds of a cop seeing and knowing that it was henbane are slim to none because it kind of looks like poppy seeds. Um, so yeah, I don't think that anything they were doing was super illegal.
yeah
So like, yeah, there would be no case, no court, anything.
yeah
Um,
it
so
was
yeah.
more like you just kind of wanted out and that was it yeah
Yeah, I was just kind of miserable and then I left. And then when I was like, all right, well, gloves are off and now I can kind of talk about what happened, that's when everybody was like, oh no, that's a fucking cult.
yeah so have you been on podcasts already talking about it?
This is my third.
Okay. And you just put it out there recently, right? So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
one just came out, but then I was I in a cult? and that was we recorded it in December, so almost a full year ago. And then it launched in January. But like my life is completely different from that perspective. And so yeah, I think that like I was still really new when I recorded that one. Um, or like still dealing with stuff, and I've kind of dealt with a lot of that stuff, and now I'm just like, fun fact, I was in a cult, started this perfume company. Isn't that cool? Um, yeah, so now my perspective on it is a little bit different. Whereas if you would have told me like when I did my first podcast where I talked about the cult story, if you were like, like at one point in time the host asked like, so now that we went over everything, do you think it was a cult? I was like, I don't know. Some of the stuff was like, and I think like, no, it was a cult. It was a coven that like went crazy. And if it just stayed in the lane of like being a spiritual thing where like every 3 months we were doing drugs in the woods, I'd still be in it. It was like the manipulation shit, like not telling me about Sif or telling me to get rid of my dog or quit my job and like that sort of thing. And then Lux also kind of always put it as this is part of your witch training. Like if you're not doing this, you are not doing your witch training effectively. So I think like crossing that border is where it turned into a cult. If Lux stayed in her lane, we wouldn't I wouldn't be on this podcast.
Yeah. Do you think she'll come contact you now that you're going on podcasts and be like, hey, you better shut your mouth or whatever?
I don't give a shit. I don't give
No.
a shit. I honestly, I don't care. And I also don't care about her trying to hex me or the rest of the cults trying to hex me. I do not care. Because yes, am I doing a bunch of publicity? Yes, right? Was I always told to keep it secret? Yes, right? But words have power and actions have power, and I have been presented in with a situation where I can, even though I'd rather not have had this experience, be a voice for people who've undergone culty shit in the pagan community. Because when I did the first one, a bunch of people hit me up and were like, hey, Melissa, especially if they knew me prior to my whole cult thing and like just knew me from being a part of the pagan community. A bunch of people hit me up and were like, hey, some shit like that happened to me too. Maybe not drugs in the woods, but I was trying to get my high priestess certification, and the high priestess of the coven I was training under did all of this manipulative bullshit. So, like, thank you for talking about this and being a person that I feel comfortable opening up to about this. Like, I have a friend who's another therapist who is also a pagan, who, when they heard that what happened to me and heard my first podcast episode, they were like, oh shit, that happened to me too. Right? Like, thank you for being a safe space for me to have this conversation, because you can talk about it intelligently and talk about it from like a therapeutic perspective. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I think I've been presented an opportunity to really create change in a community that I love and I'm very passionate about and feel really at home for, like home in. And I'm not gonna waste it by being afraid.
Yeah. I had a guy on who has a cult. If you're interested in going on, finding another one, although they may have contacted you, but I talked to a guy who had a cult podcast. It was him and a girl, and she was in a cult, like when she was younger. I think it was more of like a religious type cult, but he was a good guest, and then they actually had a good amount of followers or listeners, I guess, too. So if you want, I'll send you their way or tell them about you. I don't know if you're looking to go on more, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. I'm always kind of down to get my message out there. Um, because people need to hear about it. It's not every day that everybody did drugs in the woods.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to go over, or otherwise we could just end it? I know it's late there. It's 11:30 or
39. Yeah,
yeah.
it's fucking
So
late. I'm way past my bedtime. I'm going to bed
yeah.
after this. And then, well, I'm kissing my puppy and then I'm going to bed.
Yeah. You're not gonna stir that cauldron of yours.
No, no. I might hug my gigantic Mothman plushie, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay. I also had a what do they call those? Mothman? I had a Mothman guy on the podcast. What do they call the Mothman?
Like a cryptid hunter.
Yeah, I had a cryptid guy on the podcast too. So yeah, I'm actually tired too. I came straight from work, so it was good talking to you. And so yeah, so lastly, plug your fragrance and then whatever else you want to plug. And then I always ask too, like what you're into in terms of like music, movies, TV shows, podcasts, books, whatever. It's kind of a weird one because people are like, why am I plugging someone else's thing? But I'm just curious to what people are into. And I'm always curious to listen or watch, find more stuff to listen or watch. And then also your podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the perfume company is Sif Sniffs. So it's www.sifsniffs.com. Oh, it's backwards. Anyway, SIFSNIFFS.com. I travel the country, so mostly in the Northeast, but I go as far as Salt Lake City. I love you, Utah, and I cannot wait to go back. And I travel as south as Florida. So I go all over. I've been to Louisiana, so catch me on the road. I'm constantly traveling. I would love to meet you in real life. My podcast is called Sillage and Sorcery. It is me and another witch who is a perfumer, and we do deep dives into ingredients, both their spiritual and like historical uses. I do like the history deep dives on a popular fragrance. So if you see me in this outfit again, it's because we recorded today. So we have an episode coming out on Louboutin. So I do
What is
like
that?
really
Louboutin?
Louboutin, like the red soled stiletto shoes, they have a perfume company. So I talk all about like the history of Louboutin, how Louboutin got started, how the company transitioned to fragrance, and then a little bit of the history of the fragrance of the episode and kind of go into how that fragrance came about and how it's been received by the world. I have some really cool episodes. I'm constantly talking about Nazis. Coco Chanel was a Nazi. Like, I do all these like historical deep dives, and you're like, oh, we're gonna get racist or anti-Semitic or something, because it's, 1939 and the vibes were different back then.
In a good way or a bad way? Because you
Uh,
mentioned you mentioned how the Norse people were like white supremacists or whatever. I'm assuming you're against that, right?
Yeah, they're not
You're
all white
against that
supremacists, but
aspect of
like
them.
a lot of the symbols and stuff, like the SS is like the SS symbol for the Nazis was two runes. And they like did that on purpose
It
to
was too what?
co-opt. It's two runes. So runes are like the alphabet that a lot of Norse witches associate with magic purposes. So like I'm wearing a rune necklace right now. It's not the one that the Nazis used, but um like the runes are just a magical alphabet, basically. And the SS symbol was two runes right next to each other. It's Suilo and Suilo. Um, so yeah, it's like things like that there were a lot of like symbols and stuff that were made by the Vikings or the Norse that got like co-opted into the Nazis. I have a whole episode about that. Uh,
Yeah, I
but
don't know if I knew that, but I knew that they were into like what was it? What am I trying to think of? I guess they were into like the occult type stuff, which I guess would be similar to.
yeah, that's like something like a little bit different. But in case you do want, we have that whole episode. But we basically the Germans were looking for cultural identity because they were a bunch of different like countries that just kind of like formed as Germany. And they when they were looking for like a united culture, they co-opted a lot of like Viking iconography. So when the Nazis rose to power as this like super German, like the most German to ever German, they kind of took all of these Viking ideas that had at that point in time it had been decades in like historical stuff in Germany, and they kind of took it to another level. So that's why you get all the Viking stuff. And
Yeah,
then
I'll check it out.
after the Nazis like fell and got their asses handed to them by the Allies, there were still people who believed in like white supremacy and anti-Semitic beliefs, and there had already been this like co-opting of Norse stuff, so they kind of continued it. Um, and fun fact, in the US, they specifically targeted prisons to to preach white supremacy. So
Who did? The Nazis did, or
yeah, like the people who were like still Nazis, they purposely targeted prisons to preach white supremacy.
that's why
Um,
like it's probably why you hear about a lot of like prison people being Nazis or whatever, right? People in prison. Yeah.
nope.
So is your podcast too? Is it audio only, or do you guys have like video too?
It's video on YouTube, it's audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible. There's other platforms. There's like a ton of other platforms that we're on, but it's video on YouTube, it's audio everywhere else.
Okay, cool. And is there anything else you're into that you want to shout out?
Um, I will say I love the Throne of Glass series and that I find it very inspiring, and that there may be a perfume in an upcoming collection that, has maybe a little something to do with Throne of Glass.
Which one is Throne of Glass? Is it a Game of Thrones one, or
Well, have you heard of ACOTAR or A Court of Thorns and Roses and all of the women who are getting horny for Faye?
is that from what is I don't even know what that's for. Is that from Game
Oh,
of
it's
Thrones
a
or
book. It's a book. It's like a book, but it's written by this author that's like a multi-million-dollar copies sold author. But her most famous is ACOTAR, is the letters, but it's A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's all Fae having sex with one another. And Throne of Glass is her series before she wrote A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I've never had to say it out loud like that many times. Usually it's just ACOTAR. And Throne of Glass is like the series that she wrote before she wrote ACOTAR, and Throne of Glass is more high fantasy and less fairies fucking.
I don't even think I've heard of that one. Like what is it on?
You would I guarantee you, if you've been on Instagram or anything on Book Talk, you've seen something.
I mean,
Have you
what
heard of
what
like Fourth Wing?
no. What kind of stuff is that? What kind of genre is it or whatever? Like is it
It's fantasy, but it's like it's the romantasy that like everybody's freaking out about now in the publishing world.
Oh, is this a book then?
Yeah.
Okay,
It
sorry.
yeah.
I was
Throne of
thinking it
Glass
was
is
like
a
a
book series.
I
I
was thinking
mean,
it was like a
now it's
TV
like a
show.
multimedia empire like Harry Potter because they've got like merch and hoodies with, I'll bleed whatever color you want me to bleed and all the horny stuff that they say in these books. But yeah, so Throne of Glass is a book series. ACOTAR is another book series. I've been into Throne of Glass because I'm not a smut reader.
Okay, I think that I've heard of it, but because it's not a TV show, I definitely haven't read it. Um,
You haven't been hoarding on a Kindle. I get it. I get it.
no,
We can't all be cool like that.
I don't think I ever have because I don't read because I really don't read. So, I think it would be more movies, TV shows. But is that it for you then? For
Yeah,
the
it's like that, and I mean, I have been listening to a lot of podcasts because before I agree to go on anything, I always make sure to listen or watch at least one episode. Um,
Thank
so
you for
yeah.
doing that.
Also, it's for my own goddamn sake. I don't want to be on some weird ass fucking podcast that's gonna ask me dumbass questions.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
curious to what I'm curious to like what the other ones are like. Um, so I've asked a couple times like, have you been on any other ones? But it's have the other ones gone good though? Probably because you like listened to them first, right?
yeah, all of them, like, I'm pretty chill with. Like, they're all, like, I make sure everybody's, like, totally legit. It is a lot of dudes. I think, was I in a cult? I was interviewed by a girl. But, I will
Was
say
that
there,
one? Is that one like a big one? Was I in a cult? Is it a big?
oh yeah, was I in a cult is huge.
Yeah, I don't really follow the cult world of. I do for true crime, but I have
Oh,
heard of
okay.
that one. Is that one like on some sort of? Is it just a regular? Is it a podcast on like Apple Podcasts, or is it under some
Yeah,
name?
it's on Apple Podcasts.
Okay,
It's on Spotify. It's on everything.
okay,
Um, they have a Patreon. Do you do that too?
okay. And in terms of music, what music are you into?
Uh, Baby No Money.
Baby No
I've been
Money.
obsessed with Baby No Money.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
Okay, so Baby No Money is he's a rapper, kind of. But like a lot of his lyrics are I'm chronically online and I'm like big into YouTubers. Like if you ask me who I'm subscribed to on YouTube, that list is very goddamn long. Like I'm Smosh and Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and Vanoss Crew and like I'm big into the YouTuber space. Like
Is H3 one of them,
oh yeah, well yeah. Like that's
Or Destiny?
yeah, that's like more of like the news podcasters. I'm into like the gaming, irreverent, making dumb shit podcasters. I've seen Game Grumps live multiple times. I've seen Ninja Sex Party live multiple times. But Baby No Money is like in that group of like crazy YouTubers and like Twitch streamers and stuff that I follow. Except he does rap music and some of his lyrics are crazy.
Yeah, most of what I'm listening to is or watching is on YouTube is like making fun. I don't know how much you follow like the comic world, comedian world, but it's like there's like the Joe you obviously know Joe Rogan and like his whole crew. Like there's that, but then I listen to like people making fun of that, but it's just how
Oh,
bad
got
the
you.
comedy is. Yeah, I'm not into that. Although sometimes I'll watch Joe Rogan if he has like a good science guest on or whatever, but like it's all just basically making fun of him and then H3 and then like Logan Paul and like so it's more like yeah. That's what uh YouTube algorithm has thrown me down recently. Um
I
yeah,
think
so
that's
then
so interesting about the internet, just as an aside. Like, to me, Ninja Sex Party is famous as shit, right? And you've never heard of him.
yeah, yeah.
Or like the Try Guys, I'm a subscriber to their like premium second try channel. Like I love the Try Guys, I love Smosh, I love
I feel like I've like heard of those, but I've heard of Markiplier. Is
yeah.
he the guy who is Markiplier the guy who like will sing? There's one guy I know of who like he'll like sing. Forgot exactly what he does. He kind of like riffs, but he like makes music. Like he'll get like a topic and he'll like riff on the topic like in a song. Uh,
Markiplier started off doing Let's Plays, which is just like you watching him play a game.
okay.
Some of his great work is this game, I forget what it's called, but like you're a guy in a pot and you're like just trying to get higher up and higher up, but if you fall, you like fall all the way back to the beginning and it's frustrating and the game mechanics are crazy and everybody got like mad and broke their keyboard. Um, but yeah, like I watch all like the gaming people and like now a lot of them kind of moved over to comedy and more like reactive stuff because I guess gaming is not trending and not making money anymore. Um, but yeah, I that's kind of like where I started with YouTube, and then I just kind of Followed a lot of them. Oh, and I watch Phil DeFranco every day. Phil DeFranco, he's getting a like from, he's getting a view for me every single day that he posts a new episode.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, like what you were saying, like there's a lot of guys like I listen to where I'm like, oh yeah, like I think they're famous or big or whatever, but then I'll talk to somebody else about it and they're like, who's that? You know what I mean? Like they have like no clue about like the world that I'm living in on YouTube or podcasts.
Yeah.
And I have to shout out that I saw Pluribus. I don't know how much TV or movies you watch, but I don't know if you know Pluribus, but it's the new Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad. It's his new show. I
Got ya.
recommend that. Um, yeah, it's a good show. You might even be into it. It's kind of like sci-fi ish. I don't know if you're into sci-fi, but
I
you might be into it.
read sci-fi. I listen to audiobooks on sci-fi. The problem is that I'm constantly working. So anything that like requires two senses at the same time, too much for me. Like if I need to like listen and see it, no, that's not gonna happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. I don't honestly watch too much because of that. I listen to a lot of podcasts because of that.
Yeah, like
Because
the reason I get
yeah,
podcasts is because I can put them on and make perfume for 5 hours here in my basement and be fine.
yeah.
Whereas like, yeah, and audiobooks, because I travel so much, like next weekend I'm traveling, I'm doing a 12-hour drive and a 12-hour drive back. I will absolutely listen to an audiobook the whole goddamn time and the whole time back.
It sounds kind of like fun to be traveling a lot like that. Um, it sounds like a pretty good gig, I would think.
Sometimes it can
Yeah.
be little taxing when it's like Salt Lake City is 34 hours from where I live. Um, and because I have perfume is hazardous, so you can't check it on a plane. You also can't ship
Oh,
large amounts of it. So I have to drive. Um, and when you're driving through Pennsylvania, which is just woods, and then you get past Pennsylvania and you get to Ohio and Indiana, and you're on I-80 the whole time. It's the same road, and it's just corn, 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 uh, cows, and then corn. It could be real boring if you don't have a good audiobook.
yeah.
Especially when you're doing it. Like there was one day when I went out to Salt Lake City, the most recent time, that I drove for 16 hours in one day. I had woken up
Yeah.
at 4 o'clock Eastern time, and by the time I had stopped, I was in Mountain Time, and it was 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I was thinking you would fly to those places, but
I can't because of what I make.
yeah. And I like driving though. So, oh yeah, what podcast did you listen to of mine? And just out of curiosity.
I forgot. I'm gonna look it up. But it's in my thing. Come on, do the library. It's showing me Conspirituality, which is another podcast that I listen to. Uh, and I
Is that like
use
conspiracy theories?
Conspirituality. It's three journalists who all did. Where's my window for you? It just decided to go away. Oh, there we go. I don't remember, and it's not on my Spotify. Conspirituality is three journalists that all do like they cover Maha and like the intersectionality of spirituality, pseudoscience, and like extreme beliefs. So that's cool.
Maha being like make America healthy again, or oh
Yeah.
wow, that's a whole nother topic. I'm assuming they covered it in a bad way, right? And then they put down RFK Jr. or
I think they do a lot of research. Like they're journalists, so they kind of like take it. I don't think they necessarily like outright just hate him. I think more of the concern is okay, now he's got this platform, now he's got power. What's he going to do with it? And
He
are those
seems,
based in reality and science?
yeah, he seems kind of crazy. But anyways, thanks for coming on. I'll send you the link in a couple days, and thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.